I know why they robbed Manny Pacquiao, and obviously you guys know this is speculation, but I have a strong feeling the casinos saw all that money coming in for Pacquiao. If you guys really follow the sport, or even if you follow, betting odds for boxing, and you probably wanted to spend a little money, maybe bet on Pacquiao, Barrios, however, you believe the fight was gonna go, you wanted to check out the odds. So if you knew about this fight early, you know that when the odds came out, it was pretty wide. Pacquiao was a heavier favorite than he was right before the fight. Before, Pacquiao was closer to like 800, plus 800, but then it slowly started to get closer to 300, and then it turned to like 210 or 200, plus 200, something like that. And I think that the casinos just didn't want that to happen. I mean, like I always say, the house always wins. You're never gonna beat the house. That's how boxing is. That's how gambling is in sports. So I just feel like they saw a lot of money coming in for Pacquiao. I really thought Pacquiao won that fight no problem. So that's the reason why I believe that they robbed him. Because if you look at the fight, there's no way that Pacquiao lost that fight. I mean, like a draw, I'm not terribly mad at it, but I still think it's nasty. I still think it's disrespectful, disgusting that Pacquiao got a draw against Mario Barrios. I mean, I saw 7-5 worst case scenario. I thought it was 8-4, but even if you want to give Mario Barrios some leeway, and I like Mario Barrios, I'm a fan of his. I thought he did very well against Tank, against Keith Thurman, but I didn't think he did well enough to get a draw against Manny Pacquiao. That was just my opinion, but I really do think that history should have been made. Pacquiao should have broken his record as the oldest welterweight world champion in the history of boxing. I think they took that from him, and it's just weird. I just feel like the casinos, they saw all that Pacquiao money coming in all at once, and they were like, are these people gonna win all this money? I'm sure millions and millions upon millions were bet right before the Pacquiao fight went down, and everybody thought he was old at 46. Don't get on the hype train now. A lot of people were hating on Pacquiao, saying Barrio's gonna beat him easy, he's gonna sleep Manny Pacquiao, and I'm like, you guys don't know boxing, because Barrios has horrible footwork. And I like Mario Barrios, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, as a fighter, as somebody that breaks down the sport, Barrios doesn't have good footwork. He doesn't know how to deal with guys that can turn you, put angles on you, and crack. Guys have always been able to hurt Mario Barrios. You look at his last and most recent fights, you even go back to the Tank fight, he's been hurt. You look at the Keith Thurman fight, he's been hurt. The Ramos fight, hurt. And then Pacquiao obviously got the respect of Mario Barrios early, and I'm hearing a lot of nonsense about people saying, Pacquiao was lucky that Mario Barrios held back against him. I'm like, you really don't know boxing if you guys think Mario Barrios held back. He didn't hold back. This is boxing. He felt the power from Manny Pacquiao even at 46 years old. He felt that power. He felt the crack. And he said, I don't want to get caught with anything stupid. That's why he was so conservative. I knew what Mario Barrios had. That's why I was so confident that Pacquiao was going to win. I watched him train at Wild Card, and I was like, man, he still hits really hard. I don't think Barrios is going to be able to deal with that power, or when he feels it, he's going to respect it. And that's what happened in the fight. Pacquiao got a lot of respect from Mario Barrios, and that's why Pacquiao was ultimately able to throw these combinations. He utilized that footwork, changed the angles on Mario Barrios, darted with that in and out motion, not to the extent that he was able to when he was much younger, but it was still enough to beat Barrios. That's why I'm a little bit frustrated with a draw, because ultimately Pacquiao worked so hard. I was in that training camp. I seen it with my own eyes, how hard Pacquiao was working for that, and for them to rob him, I think that's a robbery. You could say everything you want, like that was a close fight. It was a close fight. It was a competitive fight. But even though it was a competitive and close fight, a decisive decision should have been in favor of Manny Pacquiao, and there should have been a unanimous decision. It shouldn't have even been a split decision in my eyes. So I think Pacquiao was done wrong. It happens a lot to him, unfortunately, in his career, but I was very impressed. I think that entire arena, everybody knew that Pacquiao won that fight. There are like less than 5%, I would say, believe Barrios won, and some people were okay with the draw. I'd say like 10 to 15% were okay with the draw. I'm okay with the draw, but I really do feel like Pacquiao won. I'm not mad, because they could have gave the win to Barrios, and I would have been really like salty. I would have been outraged if they did that. But a draw is like, at least nobody technically loses, but I think Pacquiao deserved to win that title, and it is what it is. I think Pacquiao's the GOAT of our generation, and he should have been rewarded justly. I just didn't think it was fair to give it to Barrios as a draw. I feel like he deserved to have his title taken from Pacquiao even at the age of 46, because Manny put on a hell of a performance for his age. And I still, you know, all factors included, I really do think that he beat Mario Barrios on July 19th. But, you know, respect to him, respect to Manny. Still looking amazing. You know, the crowd went crazy for him. It made me emotional to see everybody chanting Manny, you know, willing him to the end of the fight. And it was just a movie, you know, to see Pacquiao back at it. I really enjoyed it. Hope you guys did as well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Barrios versus Pacquiao, and, you know, whether or not you think Pacquiao was robbed. I believe he was, but it is what it is. This is boxing. So like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next Now's Boxing video. It's been your boy Matt. Peace.